Hello and welcome to this Royal Society Publishing video podcast. Biology Letters has published an unusual paper called Blackawton Bees, in which the research was devised and carried out in a local church by a school class of 25 8 to 10-year-olds from Blackawton Primary School in South Devon. Although the paper itself is unconventional, having been written by the school children in the local pub, the results they found are completely new and give a novel insight into the colour and pattern vision of bumblebees. The work was carried out under the supervision of research scientist Beau Lotto and their head teacher Dave Strudwick. Beau Lotto is a reader in neuroscience at UCL and head of Lotto Lab, where he engages the public in many aspects of his research.
It started with wanting to do experiments in public spaces, and I had been doing that for quite a few years, and the aim in that process was to do real experiments in a space that anyone could not necessarily take part, but observe and talk. And so it was very interactive. So it wasn't a demonstration, but it was asking a genuine question that hadn't been asked before. And then it occurred that what if we actually did an experiment in a public space, but this time it wasn't designed by me, it was designed by a non-expert. And so we thought, well, what would be a better non-expert than 25 8 to 10-year-old children? And so I approached a head teacher down in Blackawton in Devon. He was really excited about this idea.
It started from a very early conversation with Beau about maybe coming in and doing an assembly about science, and he brought in a whole range of things to that assembly. But the key thing was the idea of science as a game, and that he had just the best job in the world because he just played games all day. And he presented that in a really lovely way that the children kind of really got. And that started, I think, for the two of us, a conversation that grew over a year around actually it'd be really great to challenge the expectations of what science is, both in a adult to adults, but also to the children as well.
We tried to get funding for it, but we were unsuccessful in getting the funding. And we got two reasons for why we didn't get the funding. The first one was that there wasn't high enough cost to benefit ratio. So we weren't going to impact enough people for the amount of money it was going to cost, which was just a few thousand. And the other criticism was that, and I think this referee came from the education side, was that kids couldn't do it. So to ask them to design a real experiment, it just wasn't possible for an 8 to 10-year-old child. So that, of course, just made us want to do it even more. So I drove my Land Rover up to London, put the bee arena in the back, and drove it down to Devon. And we set the arena up in an old Norman church next to the school. And so I just funded it myself. And through the course of the actual designing the experiments and running the experiments took a couple of months. Going into the school every day, working at the school, training the bees in the back of this Norman church while a funeral was taking place, while services were taking place. So it was a bit surreal. Doing research on bumblebees is something that is not only incredibly accessible to the public, but it's also very cost efficient. You can ask some really fundamental questions with some plastic and some wood and a beehive and a few lights. Another added bonus is that they're not classified as animals by the health office, so you don't need actually licenses to do research on them. The real reason for doing research on bumblebees or any simple system is that we want to understand how the brain works. And bees are beautiful in the sense they're like little flying people. So their brain evolved to solve the same fundamental problems that our brain evolved to solve. So playing chess, things like that are relatively straightforward. Even computers can do that. But what's really difficult is recognizing an object under different orientations or under different lights or different distances. That's what the brain evolved to solve. And what's true for bees is also true for us, or what's true for us is also true for bees. So by studying bees, we can better understand not only how they make sense of the world, but how we make sense of the world.
You see? Now, look at this. What's that? You see that X?
Yeah.
Okay. Why do you think we have an X there?
So they know where to go.
Very good. So they know how to get home, right? So if you were to walk out of your house for the very first time, what would you do? What's the first thing you do? You've never left your house before, right? You're 6, 7, 8 years old. You walk out of your house. You've never been outside before. What's the first thing you'll do?
Look around.
Look around. You'll look behind you, see what your door looks like, right? When they fly out for the very first time, they fly out and they make these, they fly like this, yeah? And they're looking to see what their house looks like. So if we took that X off, they wouldn't be able to find their way home.
And they'd be kind of confused.
They'd be very confused, yeah.
Now, of course, we're doing it with very different brain structures. But if we can understand what's common between them, then we could possibly get at some basic biological principles about how brains make sense of their environment. The other beautiful thing about bumblebees as opposed to honeybees is that we can raise them in a highly controlled environment. So we can completely quantify all the visual experience they have through their whole lifetime, which is only a few weeks. And we can then relate that experience, that visual experience, back to the functional structure of their brain and how their subsequent behavior. So it's a beautiful model for looking at basic principles of vision from the biological level, the mathematical level, and the behavioral level.
We're not quite sure what that puzzle's going to be yet. It might be about counting. It might be to see if the bees can do 2 plus 2. It might be to see if they can go to a pattern of color like green, blue, yellow, and purple.
We came up with the question whether we could teach bees a pattern or basically, or if bees could learn.
We trained them to learn a puzzle that we created through games and pictures.
We kept the bees in a beehive, just like a plastic box, and we let them into a glass really big box with split into quarters and with a series of circles where blue in the inside surrounded by yellow and yellow in the inside surrounded by blue.
We had a sheet of paper and replicating the circles on in the cube, and we put a dot in every one that the bee went in. And first off we put sugar water, which is basically their reward, in the middle, and salt water in the outside. But they didn't just go for the middle, they went for colour, and they learnt that. Most of them went to the middle. And then we changed the colour, and some of them chose different tactics. Some of them chose colour, some of them choose just, you know, where it'd be.
We let the bees in one by one, and we recorded the data onto a sheet, like a symmetrical sheet, and wherever the bee went, and we put a dot down.
So the bees had to find a particular color of flower. But the color of the rewarding flower was contingent or dependent on what surrounded it. So, for instance, could the bee go to the blue flowers if it's surrounded by yellow, but the yellow flowers are surrounded by blue? Point being, they can't just go to blue flowers. They have to use the spatial and the structural relationships between the colors to decide which one to go for, which is a very complex task and one that machine vision systems find very difficult. We find very straightforward, but we don't know how we do it.